news, of course, is that Israel has launched a massive attack on Iran. Israelis are ruling the skies over Iran, and they're picking out targets at will. That's a huge disadvantage that we are seeing right in front of us. We have to wait. Is Iran waiting for something more? Because the damage that they have incurred so far is massive. What kind of options does Iran now have?
I feel that they have no option but to respond whatever they have. Otherwise, I think you're looking at more devastation coming in next 2 weeks.
We know that Iran has ballistic missiles, but then Israel also has the Iron Dome, very strong air defense system. Is the option of actually attacking Israeli mainland?
Iranians, I believe, do have a formidable attacking power. And nowadays, it's very difficult to, actually, if there is a determined attacker, it's very difficult to stop all of that.
We know that capacity, that capability has been degraded to an extent. But how potent could that option still be? What about the option of creating greater level of chaos and disrupting the way that the status quo in Middle East is structured? How feasible would that be, given the fact that Iran is, as Air Marshal Saab was saying, is in a tight corner and running out of options? The big news, of course, is that Israel has launched a massive attack on Iran. And now Iran is responding. The situation is unfolding rapidly, and there are fears that this conflict could widen and inflame the entire region. How dangerous is the situation? In today's podcast for Aik News English, we are going to go deeper into the possible outcomes of this very dangerous and unstable situation that has developed after Israel's unprovoked attack on Iran. Joining me are two very important and very qualified guests. My first guest is Air Marshal retired Shahid Alvi. He's had a very long and distinguished career in the Pakistan Air Force as a fighter pilot. And he's also served as Pakistan's ambassador to Syria. So he's eminently qualified to speak about this topic. My second guest is Brigadier Fahd Husain, also a very seasoned defense analyst, has had a very distinguished career in the Pakistan Army, is currently pursuing his PhD in security matters. So, and also he also writes for different publications. Thank you, gentlemen, both for joining me today. Air Marshal Shahid Alvi, if I were to start with you, I think one thing which has become very clear is the vital importance of having a credible air force. We've seen, in this attack that Iranian air force is nowhere to be seen, and in that respect, Israelis are ruling the skies over Iran, and they're picking out targets at will. That's a huge disadvantage that we are seeing right in front of us.
Well, yeah, but I'm a little surprised on that for the fact that till the time Bashar regime was there in Syria, so Israelis were launching regular strikes, but those weapons were launched while staying inside Israel or from the Golan Heights. It was after the regime was toppled and all those missile batteries were made disabled, then they started flying over Damascus without any fear, and we could see those aircraft. But in case of Iran, which still has its air defense system, which it used to boast that it is one of the best and very potent. So with those, if Israelis aircrafts are coming with, impunity and at their will and having a complete air superiority, so that speaks of two things. Number one, that Israel has been able to neutralize that air defense by virtue of their electronic spectrum, number one, like the way the US operates. Or the second is that in the very first strike, they were able to neutralize most of those weapons. And so that is why if there is no air defense left, only then the aircraft can come and operate. So out of these two possibilities, that's why, they're able to.
And
fly at them.
Marshal Shahid, we've of course we've heard confirmed news that the air defense systems of Iran have been taken out successfully. So yeah, your point is very valid that since there is no resistance, um, Israeli jets are free to target wherever and whenever they want to.
Yes, and perhaps in another week or so, we will find out the real strength that, I mean, the world used to believe about Iranians, drones, and their missiles
Hmm.
and their defense systems. I think it's just a matter of time, and I think Israel is testing that.
Hmm. Hmm.
That what could be the response? Like you must have seen that Israelis have said that all the drones were intercepted, the hundreds, and they have asked the people that there's no need to remain in shelters anymore. They can come out. That speaks very clearly. And I was just listening to the news where President Trump has warned Iran that the next attack would be very massive. So what does it mean? It means that they are just asking them to surrender right in the beginning.
You're right, and you refer to President Trump's post. I think it's very important, Brigadier Vikar. I'm sure that you've also seen this tweet, but I think it's a post, I think it's worth repeating because till yesterday, the last statement that we had from Secretary of State Rubio, uh, it was a bit more curt. It didn't really have full, complete, unequivocal support for Israel. But this latest post from President Trump is far more emphatic. And I'll just read it for our viewers' knowledge also. In the post, Mr. President Trump says, I gave Iran chance after chance to make a deal. I told them in the strongest of words to just do it. But no matter how hard they tried, no matter how close they got, they just couldn't get it done. I told them it would be much worse than anything they know, anticipated, or were told that the United States makes the best and most lethal military equipment anywhere in the world, by far, and that Israel has a lot of it, with much more to come. And they know how to use it. Certain Iranian hardliners spoke bravely, but they didn't know what was about to happen. They are all dead now, and it will only get worse. There has already been great death and destruction, but there is still time to make the slaughter with the next already planned attacks being even more brutal. And then he continues to say that it is best for Iran to come back to the negotiating table. Now, Brigadier Wakar, this makes it very clear that the United States, if ever there was any doubt, is fully behind this massive attack. As Marshal Alvi was saying, that Iran has never been a pushover. We've always known that it is a formidable military power. It has a strong army. It has ballistic missiles, drones, and so many other aspects of firepower. Why are we not seeing it? Do you think we have to wait? Is Iran waiting for something more? Because the damage that they have incurred so far is massive. What kind of options does Iran now have?
Now, I'll quickly go on the change in environment. The last time Iran struck. So, if you look at Iran-Israel contest has been going on for the last decade now. The environment has, I think, drastically changed. Just there were three, I think, tentacles, you can say, proxies or basically militant groups, Hamas, then Hezbollah in, in Lebanon, and then Houthis, and then of course Qatar Hezbollah in Iraq also. So I think out of those three have been badly dented. So this was the physical, let's say, access Iran had through its, like I remember a lot of IRGC commanders were, let's say, they were martyred in Syria. And then, of course, the fall of Syria, it provided the physical access and also kind of air defense system that they could intercept the Israeli system. That is not there now. So it means that I think playbook has just been modified. US was already there. Last time it was physical interception because then these allies were active. But now they know that one, allies are weak, there's no physical access available with Iran. So probably it's going to be missiles and drones also, and they know that, Israeli drone systems and this, David sling and arrow, etc., will be able to take out, and that's rightly so. So they were then able to, I will now take it. How do they? I think they planned it was to attack the center of gravity. Now, center of gravity in Iran is basically a combination of political leadership, IRGC command, and then is there, a missile and air defense system. And if you look at the targeting, I'll just, briefly go over it. Basically, it's towards basically western Iran. So start from Isfahan, and then Kermanshah. This formed the air defense sheet. This was neutralized. And then I think Israelis have been able to penetrate physically. There were 200 aircraft. And then I think they were able to also hit their, like IRGC command, then the chief of general staff is number 2, and some of the very close confidants of Imam Khamenei, they have been taken out. So it means that it was a kind of shock therapy. And things are yet to come. Despite Trump said that Iran should hold, probably if Iran holds, and you'll find a wave of assault coming to actually literally devastate Iran and maybe sort of bring regime change. It's again a very soft word. Basically, it's devastation of Iran. And that's why I think now we recall how Pakistan responded to India. That you've got to have response in all these 5 dimensions. You can't do it just from ground forces. You can't just do it. So it has to be 5 dimensions. It has to be, ground-based, air-based, space, cyber, then of course information war and all that. So all I think in all aspects, so far Iran has been on the defense. I feel that they have no option but to respond whatever they have. Otherwise, I think you're looking at more devastation coming in next 2 weeks, and ultimately Israel then prevailing as a bully in the region. So you have one bully in there and one bully is in Delhi.
Well, we've sorted the bully in our region. So let's see what happens to the one in the Middle East. But Marshal Shahid Alvi, based on what Brigadier Waqar was saying, that Iran actually just has one option, realistic option, which is to just give it all that they have. Because anything half-hearted, anything which falls short of their full capacity would probably encourage Israel to go for even higher escalation. The question then, of course, is that what do we mean when we say that Iran should unleash everything they have? What do they have? We've seen that they have drones, but Israel has been able to fairly easily block them off. We know that Iran has ballistic missiles, but then Israel also has the Iron Dome, very strong air defense system. So is the option of actually attacking Israeli mainland feasible, or does Iran have other options in terms of creating greater chaos in the region, which would force bigger powers to intervene and put an end to this conflict?
Yeah, you've raised many questions. First of all, you said that is this a time that Iran should, go full bore? I don't think so. Iran should go full bore, or Iran intends to go full bore. Because full bore means that if they have 50,000 drones and if they have 20,000 missiles and all that, they should attack with that. And mind you, Iranians, I believe, do have a formidable attacking power. And nowadays, it's very difficult to, actually, if there is a determined attacker, it's very difficult to stop all of that. We keep talking about Israeli Iron Dome and things like that, but at some stage they get, saturated, and you make the enemy gets overwhelmed with your response. So it could be very effective, but is it a viable option for Iran to just go for this option? Because the moment Iran will try to go on such options which will threaten Israel's security on a larger scale, immediately the America will jump into the war, which Iran doesn't want at this point in time. But then if Iran doesn't do that, and Netanyahu said that slowly and gradually we will continue these attacks. And for times to come, till the time we don't neutralize the threat. So that means in Iran, what option does Iran have? Iran is in a very, very actually tricky situation. If it continues to respond marginally like it just did, then within a week or 10 days, because Israeli will quickly assess its retaliation capacity. They must have already done that. They are very, smart. They don't do without having done their complete homework. And if we go by what Hezbollah or Hamas were doing, which I saw for myself, I mean, those were very, very, primitive things. And if we go by those primitives, then God save Iran.
Hmm.
I mean, they had just no idea of how to fighting a war or even protecting themselves during those times. So everybody was like, just to give you a small example, every commander was carrying who was shot in Damascus an iPhone with him or the other phone all the time. So you can imagine how naive they were while
In fact,
talking about.
Marshal Saab, if I could just jump in and take advantage of what you just said, given the vantage point of you having served as our ambassador to Syria at that particular time, the capacity for Iran to use proxies, we know that capacity, that capability has been degraded to an extent. But how potent could that option still be?
I don't think so. That option is potent because they if you look at this attack and the timing, and you can easily relate it to the past 1.5 year, how they have came to this moment. By those proxies, and especially now after change of government in Syria as well as in Lebanon, they are of no use. The only proxy that they are still left with are Houthis and a little missile capability that they have. But then it is not a sufficient one, which can cause, an attack on Israel from the multiple axes, which can, put their systems in kind of a jeopardy or word to that effect. So I don't think so. They have the capacity. Iran is in right now is in tight corner. I'm sorry to say that.
And if it has to get out of the tight corner, Brigadier Waqar, then what about the option of creating greater level of chaos and disrupting the way that the status quo in Middle East is structured? What do I mean by that? For example, oil supplies, shipping lanes, U.S. military bases in Gulf countries, etc., etc. All these options which can create a lot of chaos and pull in a lot of other players. How feasible would that be, given the fact that Iran is, as Air Marshal Saab was saying, is in a tight corner and running out of options?
I think by and large I'll agree with it that they are in a tight corner, but not responding will be fatal. Because when you talk of regime change, this is a system which is there in Iran from 1979, it's almost 45 years, 46 years. So there's an elite which controls the military, the businesses, and everything. And just imagine, and if you look at the targeting of, let's say, top nuclear scientists in the last 10 years, including, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, and later on, General, and I think some of the top generals also. And now 6 scientists are also taken out. So it means that Mossad and the MEC, the Mujahideen Front, basically, which is a kind of left-wing so-called terrorist organization in Iran, they have penetration right down to, and we'll then find the details how the scientists were, let's say, assassinated, maybe right in their bunkers. So it means this is a huge challenge to the, basically, so one is matter of regime survival. Number 2, it's matter of honor. Ultimately, when you look at Imam Khamenei's office, it is held in, a lot of, I would say, respect all across the world, especially in the particular sect. So this is basically, then you're looking at, this regime going down and then probably a major, I would say, chaos coming. I think coming to the response, one is, of course, physical retaliation against Israel itself. And I feel still, if they don't, then they had it, because then there's going to be massive retaliation coming, a second wave and third wave, and then destroying Iran wholesale. The other is, as you mentioned, selective targeting, because choking off Strait of Hormuz, for instance, takes out almost 30-35% of global oil supply. So you'll basically start listening to noise from the West, from China, from India. Then, of course, Strait of Hormuz, you go down to Bab al-Mandab and entry of Red Sea. Iran, I think, has clandestine capability in their maritime. They have some submarines also. They could do that, because I feel if they don't, then it's not going to stop. So it's I would say, catch-20 position. That you do, you have a problem. Don't do, you have a problem. So let's see. And then, of course, there is a paralysis of command at this time. A top leadership, like General Bagheri. Then you have the top IRGC command going on, taken out. And then, of course, the fear of rest of the commanders, like what happened to Hamas and Hezbollah, and subsequently, successively their leadership was targeted, they were weakened. So this is the same playbook being played. Then we have to see Russia, China, what I think, what point they start physically interference, because ultimately their interests are also going to be threatened. So I would say this option of massive retaliation combined with selective targeting into, waterways, state of Hormuz, Bab al-Mandab could be a possibility. If Iran doesn't do it, like Iraq, Saddam Hussein had a retaliated initial Desert Shield. It was said that he could have flown the entire air force and struck. He could have gained a lot of time. But later on, the Iraqi air force had to fire to Iran, or maybe Central Asian publicity was not there. So that is the kind of dilemma they are. I would say it's a very, very tricky situation. But I think also for the Gulf region and for Turkey, the rest of the messages, if you're not strong, I think you'll be next. So I think they have to be thinking that we have to get united and stop Israel from wholesale, I think, destruction.
Absolutely. And now, clearly, when we look at, the kind of chaos that we are seeing in front of us, Marshal Saab, then as Brigadier Waqar said, that, all the countries have to now look very closely at their own insecurities and vulnerabilities. I mean, we've seen ours, and we've been able to overcome it. Alhamdulillah, very well in the conflict with India. But we are lucky enough that we took the big decision to go nuclear. And as I was saying earlier, that I think it was probably one of the best decisions that Pakistan has ever taken. And because of that, now we are secure. But other countries are watching what's unfolding in Iran, whether it's Turkey, whether it's the Gulf countries, the Middle Eastern countries, and of course the bigger powers, China and Russia. Of course, they have a stake. So if the entire dynamics of this region are changing or being forced to change, and if Israel, backed by America, are actually trying to bring about a regime change in Iran, then there could be so much of uncertainty unleashed that it would be very difficult to control it. Now, nobody would want uncontrollable chaos. So in your opinion, if you were to look at this situation, what could Iran do which would still somehow save the regime and allow it to fight perhaps for another day?
Yeah, I think back-channel diplomacy backed by Russia and China is one of the only option which I can see at this point in time, which can, give Iran a kind of a face saving. Because if Iran continues in this cycle of defense and offense, then ultimately Israel will be able to, in a matter of just weeks, inflict such kind of damage, then it will be very difficult for the Iranian leadership to come out of that. And it will facilitate the regime change. So that means they have to do something to stay out of this cycle, because they are militarily, there is no match between the two. And Israel would have never attempted this massive strike if they were not sure about the Iranians' capabilities. And if you have a good capability, you bring it out in the very first attack, like we did with India, immediately, because the attack was imminent. You could sense for the last 3-4 days that something is about to happen. So neither they could save their leadership nor their assets. So which shows that how actually weak they are. At least at this point in time, this is the reading, that there is no match between the two. I mean, I'm saying at this point in time, what we have seen, what Iran could unleash will then bring Iran to an option of do or die. Because if it unleashes whatever it has, so that means it is inviting the same from American and Israel. So then there won't be any regime, then there won't be any, worthwhile infrastructure to fight on. So that's why I'm saying that Iran would like to calibrate it. But how would they do that? In especially considering the humiliation they have just had in the last 2 days, we are finding it a very, that's why I'm saying they are in a tight corner, very tricky situation. how to regain their grace also, how to reply militarily also while they don't have the capability. So I'm not seeing a very good situation for them, unfortunately.
So in that respect, then, Brigadier Waqar, if Iran has to wait for some sort of a diplomatic intervention from Russia and China, that's banking a lot on hope. Meanwhile, every hour, their capabilities are being degraded. Every hour, Israeli missiles and aircraft are going after them. So it would be very difficult for them to hold on without having some sort of a pushback, which extracts at least some costs from Israel and from the US, which would then have some incentive to either step in or hold Israel back. Now, we've discussed multiple options in terms of what Israel could do and what Iran could do. But in this whole situation, the role of Gulf countries, it's crucial. They are Iran's neighbors. They are invested in the region. They are allied with the United States. Do you think that they could at least in some ways play a role, or would they be silent bystanders?
I think again, what I always say is that on the Palestinian cause, we're not able to, as OIC or the Arab world, take that. Despite it was the genocide taking place live on television. So it means that as far as the human cost is concerned, there was less. Of course, there was talk of that peace and all that. Now, why I say that Iran should actually raise the cost is the financial cost or the commercial cost. Like two examples, if you affect the maritime sector, you can affect almost more than 30-35% of global oil. Already, I think oil has gone up by $7. So it starts affecting the entire market. So that is one of, because I think shutting down Strait of Hormuz is very easy. For its own defensive purpose, it could just declare, a blockade of Strait of Hormuz. There it goes. Then, of course, to the Houthis or maybe their clandestine operation in Bab al-Mandab, Red Sea, they could affect. These are physically, I don't think so Israel can strike them at random from there. The other is the cost of, basically aviation commercial flying. Already Pakistan-India conflict, you've seen, how India is paying through its nose. Now, the only route available for connection with North America and Europe was this Gulf region. And today we have found, Iraq has shut the airspace, Iran has shut it, Jordan has shut it. So it means that there are no flights going, I think, between Turkey and that side. And these are major, I would say, commercial airlines, also cargo flights. It starts affecting the global system. So I think these two options Iran must be considering. I would say not targeting, let's say, Gulf state per se, but there are a lot of maritime assets of the West in these two states. Every 30 seconds, there is a super tanker passing through Strait of Hormuz. That's the kind of traffic we have. So for there, I think self-defense. And then, something what Putin said, what to do of, basically Russia, if there is no Russia, what do we do with the world? And same thing, philosophy was in Pakistan. That Pakistan not existing, then why we should be looking at the world itself. I think this is a very crucial time for Iran to decide either way. But I think fighting, like Pakistan fought it out and look at the prestige. So at least Iran should try to come at parity and at least give a response, like in, I think, Battle of Bulge, what Hitler did was a launch reserve. Otherwise, either way, you are basically going to be crushed and humiliated and maybe forced to surrender. So why not, then at least display and then bring in the world. So maybe that is a more feasible option.
Exactly. And of course, we would all like to see Israel being hit and hit hard, given what done to the Palestinians in Gaza and the genocidal repression that they're doing. So, we would all want to see that, but we'll have to wait and see how much Iran can up the ante. I'd like to thank both my guests for joining today. It is an important discussion. It is also an unfolding situation, so we will keep you updated in a podcast. For now, Fahd Husain signing off.